My family flew off to Switzerland, just them, the close ones, as my mom proudly wrote in her caption. I wasn't invited. But my travel wallet was. At first, I thought it was some old photo she was recycling, until I zoomed in. James was wearing the hoodie I gave him last Christmas. My dad stood out in that ridiculous red parka he only bought this year. The snow looked freshly fallen. My stomach dropped, this wasn't a throwback. Scrolling through the comments, I saw, wow, the Alps look amazing. Living the dream. And then my aunt asked, where's Selena? No one replied. The last time I saw them, 3 weeks earlier, I had suggested a modest trip, Oregon, hot springs, hiking. My parents exchanged looks, claimed money was tight. James muttered something about exams. I paid for lunch that day. I always do. A few days later Dad asked if I could keep the emergency credit card active, just in case. Of course, I agreed. Why wouldn't I trust my own family? And now here they were, on a luxury European vacation, funded entirely on my card. 6 airline tickets, San Francisco to Zurich. Nearly $9,000 in charges. 4-star hotels, ski passes, fondue dinners, even a hot air balloon ride. All maxing out the credit line I had built for emergencies. I just sat there, numb. Not furious yet, just stunned, until James accidentally texted me, bragging. He didn't even realize. I typed back, he just did. That's when I got to work. I spent hours reversing transactions, flagging their IDs, and filing fraud claims with my travel account. Hotels cancelled, ski rentals voided, reservations wiped. Their luxury trip collapsed piece by piece before dawn. By the time I finished, they had frozen accounts, no ski passes, no hotel rooms, and a rental van that no longer existed. At 6:03 a.m., my phone exploded with 22 missed calls. Mom. Dad. James. Even Steve and Donna, their so-called friends who had tagged along. I ignored them all. When Dad finally got through around 7:40, his voice was flat. Selena, we need $4,200 to get back to San Francisco. Can you just cover it for now? I told him no. Calmly. Enjoy the rest of your stay. You'll have plenty to explain when you're back. And I hung up. 2 days later, Mrs. Langley, the neighborhood's unofficial surveillance system, texted me at dawn, they're home. Suitcases trashed. Your dad's limping. No one looks happy. I drove over. Donna was barefoot in the driveway, yelling into her phone. Steve looked wrecked. James dragged a broken suitcase while his girlfriend sat on it, whining. My parents stood at the door like defendants waiting for a sentence. I didn't bother with greetings. You owe me $4,000 in non-refundable charges. You have 3 days. They blinked, confused, until I pulled out my folder of evidence. Screenshots of every booking, passport scans, receipts, check-in photos with their faces. They'd used my stored documents, my passwords, my credit. They hadn't just stolen money, they'd stolen me. James scoffed, trying to downplay it. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was meant for people who know how to relax. You wouldn't have fit in. I turned to him. You excluded me, lied, drained my money, mocked me, and then texted me by mistake. You think this is about relaxation? Silence. Then my mom tried softening things with half an apology. I cut her off. You used Steve and Donna's names. That's impersonation. Pay me back, or I take this to legal. By the end of the day, they scrambled the money together. Uncle Mark bailed them out with a lecture so harsh it echoed through the family. The transfer came with no subject line, no message. Just cold repayment. I archived the file and slept like a baby. The next morning, James showed up at my building in a hoodie. No text, no warning. You ruined the trip for everyone. I leaned on the railing. You didn't even invite me. He pushed again. You could have handled this quietly. I laughed. You lied, stole, and humiliated me, and now you want discretion? Sympathy? Not happening. His eyes narrowed. You act like you're better than everyone. I didn't bother answering. Because I am better than people who steal from their own blood. He left, bitter and empty-handed. But his real problem was still coming. See, I'd been quietly paying his tuition for over a year. The next semester? That lifeline was gone. No speech, no drama. I simply logged into the portal, removed my card, disabled autopay, and closed the tab. Deadline passed. His account froze. Enrollment suspended. The messages started again, casual at first. Hey, glitch with tuition. Can you check? Then the calls. Then Mom's long voicemail about forgiveness, about how I was letting money define me. Define me? I'd carried this family financially for years. Rent, tuition, groceries, medical bills. But the one time I said no, suddenly I was the selfish one. Finally, Dad sent one text, I understand. Do what you need to do. And James, of course, tried one last time. You're seriously not paying? No. I wasn't. Not anymore. Because they thought I was their endless wallet. But now they know betrayal has a price. And they just paid it in full. I answered calmly, correct. The next call hit me like fire. You're pathetic, Selena. You're ruining my future over a vacation. That's how petty you are. I exhaled. No. I'm just holding you accountable. That's how exhausted I am. You don't get it, he snapped. I need this semester. I'm already behind. And I never asked you to use my card for ski trips or flaunt it online like I didn't exist. God, you're bitter. No, you're a thief. Then silence. For a moment, I thought he'd hung up. But then came the knife. You were never family. You were just a wallet. And now you're mad it's empty. Click. I ended it. 3 days later, a text arrived from an aunt I barely speak to. She told me I should be ashamed that James was family, and I should have kept this private. I ignored her. Then cousins piled on. Someone even sent me an article about financial grace. None of them knew the truth. By Sunday, I drove to my parents' house. Knocked once, no answer. I didn't expect one. The spare keys still hung inside the garage. I grabbed them, slid into the silver Civic I'd gifted them last year, and drove it home. At the time, I thought giving them that car was generosity. Now, I realized I was just restoring balance. I parked in my driveway, engine still humming, and waited for the phone to buzz. It never did. No calls. No texts. I guess they finally understood, you don't get to treat someone like a safety net for years and then act shocked when they cut the rope. They thought I'd fold. But this wasn't a game of bluffing. This was the bill coming due. 3 weeks after the tuition bombshell, I still hadn't heard a word from James. No rants. No excuses. That silence itself felt suspicious. My guess? He was scrambling, searching for another handout, maybe hoping I'd cave if I waited long enough. But then came the call. Thursday afternoon. Unknown number. Hi, is this Selena Palmer? Yes. This is Jenna from Student Accounts at Sealedge University. We've been trying to reach you regarding James Palmer's unpaid tuition. You're listed here as the financial guarantor. My stomach flipped. That's impossible. I never agreed to that. She hesitated. We have a signed form with your name and signature. Minutes later, the PDF sat in my inbox. My details, and a signature almost, but not quite, like mine. The box ticked beside assumes financial responsibility. I went cold. James hadn't just used me. He forged me. I called her back instantly. Filed a fraud claim. Sent my ID, real signature samples, screenshots of texts. She assured me it would be investigated, but until then, I was on the hook. If it wasn't cleared, it would wreck my credit. This wasn't betrayal anymore. This was war. I didn't confront James. Not yet. Instead, I drove to my grandfather's. He's always been different, removed from the chaos, sharper, quieter. I laid the document in front of him at his kitchen table. No theatrics. He studied it slowly, then looked at me. Did you already report it? Yes. He nodded once, left the room, and returned with a locked box. Inside was a folded deed. He slid it across. The family lake cabin. I'm giving this to you, he said. No one else deserves it. I'll call my lawyer Monday. I just stared, stunned. He'd never given anything like that to anyone. Then he added. I always knew you'd be the only one to grow up. On the way home, James finally called. I answered. Stop. I know what you did. You forged my name. I had no choice. I thought you'd just roll with it, like always. Roll with fraud? It's $6,000. You could have just paid it. I could have, but you made sure I wouldn't want to. He shifted tone. I'm going to get kicked out. They won't let me register. They're threatening collections. You're really gonna let this happen? Yes. You're heartless. No. I just stopped being your safety net. He hung up. No insults this time. Just dead air. An hour later, my mom left a message. Soft at first. We can't believe you're letting this tear us apart. Then bitter. You're acting like a stranger. But the truth? They made me a stranger the day they flew to Switzerland with my card and captioned it, just the close ones. More cousins chimed in, one saying I'd changed, another calling me selfish. Maybe I had changed. The next day, I returned to my parents' garage, took the Civic keys off the hook, and drove the car home. No announcement. No fight. Just quiet reclamation. That car was mine, on paper and in reality. By month's end, James was officially out. No classes, no re-registration, no safety net. I checked the university portal myself, his name gone. The house went quiet. The drama, the attacks, they fizzled. And then something shifted. Slowly, people started switching sides. A cousin messaged me privately, your mom asked if my husband could co-sign a loan for James. Now I get what really happened. Another admitted my parents blamed me when they talked about refinancing their house. Even one of James' friends DM'd me, we get it now. You're not the bad guy. Honestly? Kinda respect it. And then came the call I didn't expect, from my grandfather's lawyer. The cabin transfer was finalized. But more than that, Grandpa had rewritten his will. My parents and James? Removed. I was now his sole inheritor. I hadn't asked for any of it. But Grandpa had been watching quietly, the way he always did. He'd seen enough. That weekend, I drove to the cabin. It was weathered, still, peaceful. I sat on the porch staring at the lake, and for the first time in years, I felt calm. When I got home, my dad was waiting by my building. No warning. Just standing there. I don't want to fix anything, he said. I just want to be honest. He admitted they'd leaned on me too much, that James had grown entitled, that they'd expected me to carry everything. You were right to draw the line, he said. Then he offered his hand. I shook it. Later that night, James sent one last message. All you had to do was help, like before. You ruined everything. I read it once. Twice. Then archived the thread. Because by now, everyone finally knew what I had always known. I wasn't the problem. I was just the only one willing to stop being part of it. By the time spring crept in, James had been silent for nearly a month. The quiet no longer felt heavy, it was just expected. I had no clue where he was sleeping, how he was getting by, or if he'd finally managed to hold down a job. A small part of me wanted to check, but curiosity had cost me enough already. Then, out of nowhere, a message appeared. Just a line, "It's James. Can we talk?" My first thought, why now? Still, I agreed. We met in a cheap little coffee shop near the community college he used to laugh at. He looked worn out, thinner, older, the kind of tired that comes from nights spent under buzzing lights and restless sleep. He didn't dress it up, didn't try to polish his words. That made it seem real. He began the way I expected. Admitted he pushed too far. Said he never realized how much weight I carried until it finally landed on him. Claimed excuses were easier than change. Then he said something that caught me off guard. I didn't just wreck your money. I ruined how you saw all of us. That's what I regret the most. I let the words hang before I answered. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you either. He nodded, said he didn't expect me to. Then he surprised me again. I want to pay you back. I laughed, not from humor but disbelief. It sounded impossible. But he didn't back down. Even if it takes years, I'll do it little by little. I didn't give him an answer. I just stood, nodded, and walked away. No hug, no forgiveness speech, no promise to stay in touch. Some debts can't be balanced with money. And sometimes peace doesn't come from fixing the broken parts, it comes from leaving them broken and moving forward. That weekend, I drove to the cabin again. The lake was half frozen, the air sharp, but I opened every window anyway. Built a fire, sat with coffee on the porch, ignored my phone completely. For the first time, I realized I wasn't guarding my peace anymore. I was just living inside it. A cousin who once called me cold texted later. He said he admired how I handled everything, that it made him rethink how much he'd let people take from him too. Turns out, when you set boundaries, the quiet ones start finding courage of their own. 2 weeks later, I visited my grandfather. We didn't talk about James, or my parents, or any of the chaos. We just sat, watching birds fight over scraps like it meant everything. Then he looked at me and said, I thought all this would turn you bitter. I thought so too, I admitted. But it didn't. You just got stronger. That was it. No big speech, no final wisdom. I didn't need it. By then, the tuition, the forged signature, the betrayal, they were just background noise. The real gift wasn't the cabin. It was proof that I never needed them to make me whole. The moment I stopped letting them chip away at me, I became someone they couldn't break again. A year passed since Switzerland. Since that one text lit the fuse, since I shut off every faucet and let the bridge burn down. James never paid me back a cent, but he also never asked again. He works now, warehouse shifts, late nights. Not glamorous, not his dream, but honest. My parents still haven't really apologized. They circle around it, send in signed birthday cards, toss out soft gestures as if that patches anything. I don't chase it. I don't fight it. I just let it exist. The family talks about me differently now. Less like I was cruel, more like I did what they couldn't. Boundaries spread. 2 cousins stopped bankrolling their parents. Another left the toxic family chat entirely. And me? I stopped over-explaining. I don't soften edges or pad truths anymore. I just say no, or I say nothing at all. Sometimes peace is quiet. Sometimes it's heavy, like locking a door and walking away. But it's still peace. Strange thing, losing so much and ending up more whole. I don't miss the strings-attached calls, the constant backup plan role, or disappearing under everyone else's needs. The cabin became a ritual. Each month I go. I air it out, light a fire, walk the shoreline. No one else knows. It's mine in every way. And the silence? It doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like proof I survived them. I survived being turned into a utility, a living safety net. Looking back, I see it clearly. They were never going to stop taking. Not until I stopped giving. And when I finally did, they called it betrayal. I called it a boundary. The truth? They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing access to me. Once that ended, they had to see me for who I was, not the bank account, not the fixer, not the endless safety net. Just me. And that terrified them, because it meant they had to carry themselves. James used to send weekly updates about school, grades, clubs, all just bait to keep me funding him. Now? Nothing. No word on whether he ever re-enrolled or faced what he'd done. And that's fine. Not my job to ask. Helping isn't an identity. It's a choice. And I finally stopped choosing. My mom still sends hollow holiday messages, warm on the surface but empty inside. Mentions a cousin's baby, an aunt's move, slips in a "we'd love to see you sometime." I don't reply. Not out of cruelty, out of healing. Healed people don't walk back into fire just to prove they won't burn. I used to think forgiveness meant opening the door again. Now I know sometimes forgiveness is locking it quietly and walking away. Some people don't deserve the healed version of you. They only knew the one they drained. They don't get to meet the one who finally filled herself back up. Last week, a letter arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. James. Just 3 paragraphs. He said he was still working, still trying, still meant it about paying me back. No requests, no begging. Just words. I folded it and tucked it away, not because I needed it, but because I wasn't ready to throw it out. Some wounds scar, some fade, some linger like faint bruises. I still remember the photo, the caption, just the close ones. Back then, it stung. Now I realize, they meant it. They just didn't realize who close really was until I walked away. I don't regret leaving. I don't wonder if I was the villain. I never controlled their story, only mine. And in mine, I finally stopped letting love be transactional. Stopped mistaking family for an excuse to be mistreated. The cabin still stands. The lake's clearer, the air lighter, the silence deeper. Sometimes I read, sometimes I just sit. No guilt, no noise, no performance. Just me, Selena. Not the wallet, not the fixer, not the one they drained dry. Just someone who learned peace has a price, and finally decided she was worth paying it.